Hello friends, hello, welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. I'm super excited to be with you today. Hello everyone popping in. Today is Tuesday and we are going to do a watercolor tutorial today. So keeping in the theme of watercolor pencils this month, which I didn't start off as a theme, but I've been sharing watercolor pencils pretty much in every YouTube and every video that I've shared this month. So we're going to do it again today. Also with a little bit of a twist, because I had an idea of the project that we were going to do today, and about 10 minutes before we went live, I had a different idea, and I think we're going to do that one. So either way, we're going to have some fun with some washi watercolor and watercolor pencils, and we're going to do a little lovey Valentine-inspired little project. So, and I have some fuzz in my hair. So, hello everyone. Oh, Tanya, that's so sweet. Oh, everybody's so sweet today. Always so sweet. We've got Canadian friends. We have friends from the South Carolina, Georgia, Western New York. Oh, it's cold, isn't it? Kirkland. Hi, Cheryl from Kirkland, Washington. We've got so many friends that are joining us today. All right, we're just going to get down to it because I want to make sure that I am mindful of your time and try to get this done in an hour. So let's head down to the overhead camera. And so friends, I listed down below in the description what to grab if you were painting along. And basically it was watercolor pencils, a watercolor set, and some paper, because we are going to freehand draw or paint in the techniques that we're going to do today. Now, if you're not feeling like freehanding is your thing, you can always grab a ruler. And I will kind of show, maybe I'll show the use of the ruler, and I might be sketching some things out. All right, friends. So here was the initial idea. I sketched this out the other day. I kind of wanted to do this flowy, leafery, and blooming kind of hearts. And then I just started kind of sketching out some concepts, and then I started playing around with this envelope idea. And then about 10 minutes ago before we went live, and I'm like, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the envelope idea because I really like it and I think it's going to be fun. And we're going to see where it takes us. Okay. So there is no illustration for this one. So if you were on my email list, I didn't send an illustration. But I think what I'm going to do, friends, all of our friends that are here. Oh, Virginia, love to see you joy and radiate. You all cracked me out. Luann just said her drawings look like her cat did them. It's going to be a funny day, friends. It's going to be a funny day. Hi, Gloria. Good morning. Okay. What I'm going to do is afterwards, and if you're on my email list, when I send a follow-up email this week after Thursday's live to, I will send the illustration that we ended up with today. So the line art illustration out as a freebie to all of my email subscribers, so that if you want to come back and watch this video afterwards, you can always paint along, or you can just use that illustration and paint along. Okay, let's just get into it. All right, friends, I'm using Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. And the only reason why is because it was sitting on my desk. And I am going to be using, I just grabbed a watercolor set real quick. This is a Da Vinci set. This is just one of my favorite sets. So I'm going to be using this set today because I like the colors. And yeah, because I really like this opus. I love that red rose deep. And I grabbed a couple watercolor pencils. I grabbed some blues, orange, red, and some white. And yeah, we're just going to get into it. Now, I am using my Albert Dürer watercolor pencils. I've shared these before. They're kind of like well loved, you can see. I've been using them all month long, and many of you have come back and told me that you've either started using them or you've purchased them, and I can't wait to see what you all think about it. So Oh, Virginia, I love the Strathmore sketchbooks too. I do like Strathmore paper. It is one of my favorites to use for paper crafting projects and small projects like this. Okay, we're gonna get going on the envelope. So here's my idea. We're gonna go in, I'm gonna do this light sketch. And again, if you're doing this, you can easily do this with a ruler if you want your lines to be precise. But remember, we're gonna be, all of the line work that you may see, we're gonna end up not, it's gonna end up getting blended in when we start to watercolor. Okay, I'm gonna use my watercolor pencils. I started to grab my lead pencil to do this illustration. I just changed my mind. Friends, it's gonna be a total nerd out. Total nerd out. So I'm gonna put this right here. Let's move this out of the way. Holy smokes, that's my mouse. Let's move that out of the way. I'll put this like under my head a little bit as sort of just a general guideline of where we're headed with this. You could do this vertical or horizontal. I think I'm gonna do this vertically. I'm gonna come in very light. So I am not choked up on my pencil here because I know when I choke up on my pencil, I tend to be a little more harsh with the pencil. So I'm going to just kind of back off a little bit and just draw this part in. And that's just, I'm doing a very, very light rectangle. I'm going to come across here. Oh, so if perfect lines, like perfectly parallel lines, are something that you like, you may want to use a ruler. I'm not going to use a ruler because we're doing watercolor, and watercolor is wild and woolly sometimes, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to come down, just doing this very light, and the reason why I'm using watercolor pencil is because those lines are going to fade when we start to paint. I'm going to come down here. It's a little deep, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to come down here and meet this, kind of like right here. And remember, no drawing experience required here. We're just drawing simple shapes. And they kind of look wonky, and that's okay. Then I'm going to come up from corner, just draw in a little line here, and use the corner as my edge. And look, they're not completely parallel, blah, blah. We're going with it. Now, we're going to play with the hearts. And we're going to take, I'm going to take a pencil. Let's see. I think I'm going to take the orange pencil and just kind of rough in some hearts here. Oh, thank you, Gloria. I'm just going to rough in hearts. And remember, it's just a simple shape. We're just going to rough this in. And so it's very, very light. So for me to do very, very light little drawing, I got to back off, right? I got to back off. Jane, my stickmen need resuscitation. Remember, simple shapes. And that's why, and it's my fault, friends, because I decided like very last minute, oh, this little Valentine envelope or this little hearty like envelope would be fun. So I kind of changed the game a little bit, right? And we're just randomly dropping these in. I'm going to do 5 because we're going to do some big, wet, washy hearts. And then we're going to do some brushstroke hearts. I'm going to show you how to do some brushstroke hearts. And just kind of pop this in like this. And see how random it is? We've got some white space here, no worries. It's very, very random. We're going to pop one right up here. And you could see that they're all not like perfect. I'm going to probably end up doing one up there, but I'm going to show you how to do that with the brush strokes. So take a look at where we are. Look how wonky and wild this is. So we're going to start first with the hearts and do some wet into wet watercolor. I've got a bunch of red down here. That's pretty much this opus. I'm not going to use, this is Permanent Rose Quinacridone. and Red Rose Deep. So I'm going to focus on this Opus, Red Rose Deep, and probably some of this vermilion or this orange right here. Maybe a little pop of yellow. So let's see. Let's see where we are with it. All right, got the whole lefty thing going, so I need to move some things around here. And just kind of pop my colors next to us so that we have some good positioning here. and my simple shapes are so bad nobody wants to be on my team when we play Pictionary. Oh my goodness. I think that's not true. I think that's not true. I'm using some rounds today. I have a number 6 Princeton Aqua Elite. I think I'm going to use that one. I have a number 6, what is this? The Princeton Heritage, I think. And then I also have a little small one. Number 3. I have my finger over top. So I think I just said grab a few rounds. Grab whatever you have. Remember, this is paint and chat and techniques, but a little more relaxed, and let's not get all worried about our final outcome. We're just going to have some fun. Let's put some color in here. I'm going to start off with the Opus. Opus in the Da Vinci brand is really kind of super fluorescent. It's a really, really pretty pink color. Hello, Della. Good morning. Okay. Brush is wet, paper is dry. Boy, I've got a little bit of a left-handy issue today. So let's just go ahead and move some things around. Just going to use the hearts that we have here as a little guide. And just paint water inside. I'm going to take a little bit of that Opus. Opus, I was talking about Opus in the Daniel Smith watercolors. Opus is really like, it really kind of a fluorescent-y like pink. I really, really like it. It's a lot like Opera Rose in many of the other brands that are out there. So you can see it's like really, really pretty. Now, one of the things about Da Vinci paint is you can see that it kind of stays where I put it, right? It's a little bit different than other brands that I've shared that kind of whoosh. I've got a lot of water here and it's just kind of staying where I put it. So I'm just tapping a little bit on those little droplets of pigment, and I'm going to move the color around a little. Let's move it around. And Janet, I have lefty issues. For some reason, sometimes my lefty issues when we go live become very apparent. Okay, now the orange that was on the outer edge is kind of like where you can see that the pink is not going beyond the orange. It's because that's where the water ends. And we've got a little bit of color, kind of just pigment just kind of staying inside the lines here, staying inside where the water is. Because remember, watercolor will only go where the water is. It's not going to creep out that edge because there is no water for it to creep to. If I opened up a little gully here and I add a little water there, it would just scooch right out because it wants to find the water, which is kind of fun. All right, I'm going to grab a little bit of this orange and I'm just going to pop a little tiny bit of orange in. And you see how the Da Vinci paint in the water just kind of whoosh, it kind of spiders out a little bit, but not like a whoosh like some other colors. So I'm going to clean off my brush just a little bit and just tap with a wet brush and just kind of blend that in and let it play and mix with the water that's here. And what I really love about this Opus color, which is that beautiful pink and like that vermilion right there. Let's take a little bit of that, put that right here. Take a little bit of that Opus and put that right in there, and you get this kind of really pretty coral-like color. Really pretty coral color. Love that color. It is so pretty. Eek! A little bit like quinacridone coral from Daniel Smith, but a little more on the pinky side because I had quite a bit of that opus in there. Remember that opus, and I think I just said this a few minutes ago, is that opera pink like color, so it's super fluorescent. Oh, Virginia, you said your niece gave you the, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I've been seeing this opaque paint everywhere. I'm just going to call it Fumi or Fumi opaque paint. That's a lot like the Kiritaki Deco. And I know that I've talked about that Kiritaki Art Deco soft colors, and I have them. I think I'm going to bring them out next month and share them in some tutorials. But I've been seeing those videos with those Fumis opaques, and they look amazing. They look beautiful. All right, so we're going to let that be, and we're going to move on. Now, see how this is a little, I'm just going to run my tip of my brush just around that little edge just to soften that a little bit. All right, brush is wet. Paper is dry. Let's go ahead and move on to the other hearts and just add some water. So for the next 4 hearts, the technique that we're going to be doing is the same as we did for this heart. So it's wet into wet. Brush is wet. Paper is wet. I'm staying within my lines here. They're sort of like my little guidelines for this painting. And if my brush gets a little bit dry, remember, you don't have to start off with a sopping wet brush. You can start off with just a little bit and just keep adding more water. Okay, now I'm going to come in. I think this time I'm going to come in with a little bit of, let's drop some orange in there. Let's just drop some orange. And all we're doing is wet into wet, and we're just going to play around and drop some different colors in here. Let them do their thing. Let them have some fun. And then clean off my brush. It's wet, but not sopping wet. And I'm just going to dance my brush around. Just kind of coax this color around. Ooh, Virginia, I think you might have shared that with me before, that you did a homemade journal with like the Art Nouveau style. That's super cool. Super cool. All right, just going to dance this around. See, I'm just dancing and kind of coaxing that color around into the water and letting those colors blend together to create a different one. Oh, I love it. Now, it's very soft right now, and that's okay because we're going to end up coming back and adding another layer to it. I'm going to keep an eye on the time. All right, brush is wet, paper is dry, but paper is going to be wet because we are going to just go ahead and keep going here and paint the inside of the heart. And I'm doing one at a time. I could do all of them. It's kind of cold. It's not super humid, so we're not, it's not like summer where everything's going to dry real quick. But let's just paint one at a time. All right, I'm going to dominate this one with the pink first. Hello, Michelle. More people popping in. So many friends joining us today. I'd love to know. Oh, holy smoke, because a lot of friends joining us today. I'd love to know. I got two tutorials this week. Thursday, we're doing a card tutorial, friends. I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we move along. I'm going to dance this brush around. I'd love to know if you're enjoying the watercolor tutorials so far this month. All right, dance, dance, dance. And remember, the ones on Tuesday or the ones that I've been doing that are not card related, these tutorials are more doing a little paint and chat and doing a few little techniques. Okay, see how I've got like a little well of color here? There's more water like concentrated there. If you didn't like that, you could easily just blend that out a little bit, but I'm going to leave it because I like that kind of texture that it creates, especially when we go ahead and dry this up. All right, my brush is clean with some clean water, and I'm just tidying up that little edge. All right, let's go ahead. So wet into wet, a little bit of washy, washy, washy. And I love the way the colors blend into the next. I do too. And this is what I think makes people feel a little uncomfortable sometimes, this wet into wet technique. However, fret not. Remember that watercolor only goes where the water is. It only goes where the water is. It only goes where the water is. Let's take this orange, pop it. Whoa, popped a big bloop of orange. Take a little bit of this pink. And then let's see how they're not making friends yet. So we're going to coax them a little bit. Brush is wet, paper's wet. We're just going to tap. If it's a little too much wetness, just going to tap, 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 and just kind of coax this color, this pigment, into each other and say, hey, let's be friends. They're like on the watercolor playground together. Do, 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 do. And we're just going to let them blend. Now look at how pretty that color is. That mix of that orange and the opus, which is really, really pretty color. Really, really pretty pink. Opera rose-ish pink. Okay. Susan, as an engineer, watercolor was hard for me. Yeah. I can understand that because of that sense of control and that this is a medium. It's a very interesting medium because it feels very loose and free, because it is, right? And it's very very peaceful. Like if you're feeling incredibly stressed, sitting down and just doing something simple like this, where you just let the two colors mix together, can be very, very peaceful and can kind of help you reset a little bit. However, it can also feel like things are a little bit out of control because it does kind of have a mind of its own. But remember, that mind of its own, it's just searching out its friend. Watercolor pigments are just searching out its friend and trying to have fun with its friend, the water. So, all right, let's go ahead in with the pink. So when you keep that in mind, it kind of makes that feeling of being a little out of control less intimidating. Let me know if you agree. Also, here's my theory on these kinds of things. There's so many things in our lives that we can't control. We actually have no control over pretty much 90% of your day, right? You can control some things, you can't control a lot. And we have no idea from moment to moment, like what's going to happen next, right? So I like the surprise of it. I like the fact that I can pick up a different watercolor set and kind of get to know it and learn like what makes this one different from that one. And when I let go of the feeling or the need to try to control what my project or outcome is going to be, it's very freeing. It's very, very freeing. Oh, Susan, I totally understand it. Lean into it. We are all just learners, right? We're all learning. Now, I'm digging the way this looks. I want it to dry. I want to point out a few things that happen with washy-washy watercolor as things dry and as this has started to dry. Tanya just says, I love when you do your English accent. Okay, friends, the English accent, I don't know where it comes from. It just comes out because it's whimsical and fun, or nerves. I don't know, but we're here, we're having fun together. So, okay, this right here, do you see how we're starting to get a little bit of a hard edge around here? So there was a lot of water. We're doing this washy-washy watercolor. So the water and the pigments start to move out where the concentration of water is. And you get a little bit of this technique here called blooming. I like it. Some people don't like it. If you want like much more smoothie looks, see how I didn't have water there? You can just kind of scrub the tip of a wet brush and kind of smooth some things out if you like things to be a little more smooth. I want this to feel a little bit super washy. So Anna just shared, I like the out of control part of it, the cottage garden that has no formal lines. I love it. I love it because watercolor, another thing about, this is a very, very good point, Anna. Watercolor is fascinating because it doesn't always stay in the lines. So it doesn't. It goes where the water is. However, when it does protrude over a line or an edge and there is no water there, it can feather a little bit. And that is interdependent on the kind of paper you're using. Some papers feather more than others, have fibers that pull that water through. I'm nerding out a little bit, I can feel it. That pull that water through, and then that pigment just kind of follows that little tiny channel of water. Some papers feather more than others. This paper does feather. It's 100% cotton, but it does feather a little bit. So when watercolor artists are thinking about paintings that are more precise, they pick papers that allow them to get that level of precision. And those kind of papers are a little bit different, like Arches or a hot press paper or something like that. So Judy just said, I like wetting the paper, dropping in the color at night before bed, then see the results in the morning. That's so cool. That's really cool. Like if I let this dry, we get a very, very different result. And it's actually almost dry because I've been hammering on a little bit. But let's go ahead and just kind of dry it up a little bit. See where it's a little bit wet. Ooh, digging it. Okay, now the wet into wet that we did was very super washy, right? So it's more water, less pigment. It seemed like it was a lot of pigment because I was dropping it in, but I was just dropping it in. You could see those drops because it stayed exactly where I put it. But watercolor fades back when it dries. So we've got a very nice light wash of color here. So I'm going to leave this for the moment. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to just kind of frame in this little envelope. And we're going to frame in the outer edge of the envelope. Oh, very, very good. Cheryl just shared, to get over the control in me with the water, you just dance the brush and make blobs of water. Then add color. Yes, to see what happened. And when it dries, doodle with a black pen. That's a really great idea. Just do little droplets of water and droplets of paint, and then you just kind of let it dry and doodle around it. Yes, Virginia, Strathmore does make some pre-made cards that are very, very nice, 100% cotton. I am digging these color mixes too. I'm just running a brush, a wet, clean, sort of pseudo clean brush over my lines here to kind of give me a little bit of a framework for this envelope. So this is wet into dry, and I really like this combination of mixing together washy watercolor and the watercolor pencils. Friends, I saw another watercolor artist. You see, I'm always turning my artwork around. I don't tape it down. Some people tape it down and they just kind of work top to bottom and left to right. I feel like I have to move mine around quite a bit. But I just saw someone, and I wish I would have remembered who it was so that I could give that person the credit, but I have forgotten, or I just didn't remember, which is basically the same thing. They used like a Lazy Susan, and they sat it on a Lazy Susan and a little tiny one, and they kind of just moved their thing around. I was like, that's really clever. So if I remember, I might look for a Lazy Susan, a little small one to put in here that we can, like a little potter's wheel, right, for watercolor. That would be fun. All right, the pencil that I used cobalt turquoise for this framing in. So we're gonna do this in blue. We're gonna do wet into wet, and I'm gonna use phthalo blue. I love a good phthalo blue. Now, phthalo blue is intense. I'm gonna put it down here. Phthalo blue is a really, really beautiful color in all the brands. It's such a beautiful bright blue, but it's a staining color. So I proceed slowly with the phthalo blue. I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to rough in some washy water. You see, I'm just now watch when I add this phthalo blue. Boom, 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 boom. It's super vibrant, super vibrant. You could also use like an ultramarine blue, but see how I'm doing a mixture. We've got tap, tap, tapping, but I'm also just kind of scrubbing my brush a little bit back and forth instead of brush dancing. I'm scrubbing my brush back and forth a little bit here in a horizontal motion to kind of also move that color, but get some texture lines while I'm doing it. I like it. Digging it. Okay. Now, when I go to do this one, up here, same thing, brush, just kind of adding that water in, but notice how I'm just not adding it in. Let's turn that to the light a little bit so you can see. Notice how I'm not adding it in like full blown in that triangular shape there. I'm just adding it in. I'm going to drop a little bit of that phthalo in. Keeping it loose, and then just use this color and just go back and forth a little bit to get a little bit of those texture lines. Sort of like we are drawing, we're doodling in a little squiggly. We'll come back, we'll come back and get some definition. Take my little brush here, I'm losing some water. Tap, tap, tap in a little bit of water. I don't want the lines to be super squiggly, but I do want there to be a feeling of texture here. So I'm just kind of going back and forth. And see this line right here? I'm going to leave a little bit of white between the two, just so visually we know that that shape is there. All right, let's go over here and kind of play around with this one and see what we get. Having some fun with this one. I really didn't have a sense of how this was going to come out, friends, because, you know, I did this 10 minutes or so beforehand. Was looking at my sketch, and I really kind of like that I approached that this week. Last week we did the cardinal. And friends, the cardinal's still sitting on my desk. I have wanted to come back to it a couple times and add a few more details, and I will perhaps if I have a little bit more time this week. I wanted to add a few more details to it. Brush is clean, and then I'm just gonna kind of work, tap, 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 tap these little edges, and I'm just going back and forth here with my brush a little bit. Let's just tap, 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 leaving some of my whites. All right, I'm kind of digging that. Really kind of want, it has a washy kind of look to it. We're going to add some details back in. Now, I've got my hearts here. I am hesitating a little bit because I don't want to run my hand in there. I'm going to come up here, somewhere up here is going to be the top of my envelope. And I'm just kind of eyeballing the center line, being like right here. Totally eyeballing this. All right. I'm going to have to make a bold move here because I can feel that I'm constricting where my hand goes because I'm going to end up getting it in that phthalo blue. So let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Move this over here. All right, I'm going to come up. This is going to be kind of like a small little oval. No, small little arc. And then I'm just going to eyeball this. Kind of stops right here. So that's the shape. This is breaking the shape. This is coming up like eyeballing it like right here. It's going to be a little wonky. It's going to be a little wonky, but it's sort of eyeballed. All right. A little bit wonky, but that's all right. We're going to roll with it. We're rolling with it. It's a little bit wonky because look right here to here. So let's correct that because that's like a wonky envelope. So technically, like if I come across here, it should stop like right there ish. And it should start making its descent upwards like that. That's a little closer to being, accurate. All right. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to pick up my number 6 brush again. Utilize the very, very tip of it just to kind of blend out that line just a little bit. And we're going to just do a very, very faint wash of blue on the inside. Let's grab a little bit of that phthalo. A little more. Phthalo, phthalo, phthalo. Clean off my brush. Pick up some of that color. And just kind of come in. Now, wet into dry here. Brush is dry. Brush is wet. Paper is dry. And I'm just kind of dropping little bits of color in here. Now I'm going to take my brush and just move that color around. And just move it around the hearts. I'm working a little bit faster because phthalo is a staining color. And I put it in these places and it's just gonna want to stay there. So I want to work a little bit faster because I'm trying to keep it out of the pink too, because it wants to stay where I put it. Now, I kind of like the idea of having a little bit of white around it. Lisa-isms. I have a lot of Lisa-isms. All right, so now everything is framed in, like color blocked in, right? We've got our hearts, we've got our pinks, we've got our oranges, we've got the framework of the envelope, so everything is framed in. So in the last 20 minutes here, we're gonna bring it home. We're gonna add some layers of color and detail, and at first I'm gonna start with the watercolor, adding some more detail in, blending it out. Then we're going to add our final details in with watercolor pencil, and I think it's just going to all come alive. And then I've got one little technique I want to share. So we have this little opening right here, and I'm going to share how to make a brush stroke heart. We're going to pop it right in there. But first, we're going to focus on adding a little bit of layers to like a next level layer, wet into dry. Everything is dry. Brush is wet. Going to pick up some pigment. I'm going to pick up some of that opus. I'm going to put that down here just so that you can see it. Let me flip this over. We'll come over here. I just keep flipping it around because I'm thinking. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to like apply some of this pigment in right around that heart a little bit, and see how I just kind of brush danced it in a little bit back and forth. Clean off my brush, tap it off just a little bit, and I want to use the color that's here and kind of feather it out a little bit. I'm can add a little bit more paint if you need to. I mean, a little more water. Feather it out a little bit. And then just kind of come around. And that just adds a nice little layer. So we've got also have a little bit of an intensity of a line there. So I'm just tapping it out with a wet brush. And then I'm going to pick up some orange. And this is all still kind of wet. I'm just going to drop some of that orange in there and let it do its thing. Clean brush, tap, 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 to just get back some of that whimsy. And also you can see some of that color blooming. So that water, when I dropped it in, it's pushing that pigment back right there. Like it, like it, like it a lot. Here, let's just tidy that little line up right there. All right, now I've got a really nice little bit of orange here. I'm gonna take a little bit of that orange and mix it with this opus. Oh, that was a lot of orange. Let's mix some more opus. Let's mix some opus in there. Brush is wet, paper is dry, and we're gonna just get some color in here. Do, 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 do. And I'm just gonna kind of hover this top part. Oh, Anna, great question. Anna just shared that a couple years ago you received some Prismacolor Premier watercolor pencils. Are they worth your time? Have you ever used them? I have used them. They're not my super favorites. They're a very, very good watercolor pencil. But I feel like, and I would encourage you to get them out and try them and see how you feel. But I feel like for the way I use pencils and like the way my hand is and the pressure I kind of put on things, they get a little crumbly. And I don't feel like they're as vibrant. But they are a very, very good pencil. And the Prismacolor color pencils, we all know, are very, very popular. I like the Albrecht Dürer color pencils too. Oh, Virginia, gold in the hearts. Yep. I thought about that too before we went live, and then I forgot to go get the gold. But the gold in the hearts are dropping a little bit of gold in there. Now, remember how I talked about that blooming? See how there was so much water here, and there's like this hard line? That water is pushing back that line. If you don't like that, you just take the tip of your brush and you just blend it out with a little bit of water. There we go. Okay. I'm going to come in with a little bit of opus over here and just drop some opus in. I'm also going to, Tanya, your watercolor pencils are Pentel. They're a good pencil too. They're a very, very good pencil. Your watercolor pencils. Did I say water pencils? That's a good pencil too. And that's what I'm saying. You don't need the Albrecht Dürer pencils. I just like the Faber-Castell pencils. Derwent is another great brand. Derwent is a British brand. It's made in England. It's a very, very good brand. They are, I'm going to add a little bit of orange right here at the tip. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Love that. Loving that. Inktense. Virginia, I love Inktense. I've done several tutorials on Inktense and all of the Inktensiness from Derwent on this channel. I'm going to flip this way. I do love Inktense. They're a really, really great brand of pencils. They're a little bit different because they their pigment dries like ink. So when it dries, you can't move it, like you can't reanimate it. Or you're not supposed to be able to reanimate it, but I think I have a couple times. But I do love their colors. I do love the Inktense. I love different brands for different reasons. And I think that that's what's really important when you're starting out in watercolor, is not so much having the premium brand as it is. If you have something, get to know it. If you already have something in your stash, get it out, get to know it, and try these different techniques to see how that works, like wet into wet, wet into dry, like all of these different techniques, and see how the pigments in your set work. Because every single set, every single brand is a little bit different. Some whoosh more than others, some don't whoosh. I always talk about Winsor & Newton, and I mentioned this last week. The reason why I grabbed Winsor & Newton last week because it's a predictable brand. It does what it says it's going to do. It stays where you put it. Da Vinci watercolors are made in California, here in the USA. I absolutely love them. I think they're super, super vibrant. A lot of people like Daniel Smith watercolors. I love them too. But Da Vinci is a little bit different from Daniel Smith, in my opinion. I feel like it does a couple different things. I love that layer right there. I'm going to add a little bit of orange. Let's pick up some of this, a little bit of a darker orange here, and let it kind of do its thing. Oh. Ooh, Virginia, very nice. Cheryl just shared, my hearts look grandma wonky shaky. Oh, that's a great idea. Cheryl just mentioned using some mini heart cookie cutters. That could be a great template. Also, like if you have heart dies and friends, my paper crafting friends, if you have some heart dies, you could easily use those to kind of trace in the hearts. Okay, digging this. Loving the layers. Loving the layers. Kind of want to put a little something right there. Loving the layers. We're going to resist the urge to keep messing with it because the more water I add to it, the more it's going to push back that pigment. See how I added water here and it's starting to move? That's what happens. Okay, now I want to come back and I want to focus a little bit of attention on bringing and pulling back some of the details in the envelope so that we can bring it back to life a little bit. I'm going to grab some of this phthalo blue. And we're going to do wet into dry. Brush is wet, got pigment on here, probably a consistency of more like whole milk. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to kind of hover the line a little bit of what I've done here. Hover the line, remembering that phthalo blue is a staining paint, so I need to work relatively quickly if I want to blend any of those lines out. And actually, you could leave the lines the way they are if you liked that detail. I want to blend them out just a little bit and pull that color in. So I'm just using the very, very tip of my wet brush, and I'm pulling that color in a little bit. I'm going to flip this way so that you can see. Very, very tip of my brush. And letting that line not be completely blended out, but it's giving us that color to help bring that shape together. And I'm just blending it into the middle here. All right, I'm digging that. It's giving it a little bit more, it's 3D'ing it a little bit. Hello, Jen. Super fun. Okay, come in a little bit more here. Let's do the side. Let's do the side here. Let's do just a little bit right there. Do the same thing. Clean off the brush. Tip of the brush is wet. Oy. Kind of just tap, tap, tap. Like a little bit of feathering back and forth. Let's turn it this way. We're going to leave that white there intentionally. Just running the tip of my wet brush over my edge. Just bleeding those colors together. So already we can start to see some dimension. Lost a little bit of that line right there, but look at that, look at that, look at that. We can just go right back in and add it in to just create that dimension between this panel and this panel. All right, let's do it over here. Spinning this around again. Let's go this way. I'm trying to do this in a meaningful way so that you can see. Got the little lefty thing going. Let's come across here. Clean off my brush. Hi, Sue. No worries if you're just catching the end. That's the beauty of the replay. And we have so many friends joining us today. I'm excited. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully this time is meaningful to you. I'm going to leave that white. And I'm just kind of leaving this very sketchy-ish. Right? Some sketchy look to it. Digging it. Now we're going to come up and just do a little bit around my edges here. Might need a little bit of phthalo blue. Whoa, that was a lot of phthalo blue. Let's come up around that top. Come over here. And I need to work a little bit quickly to kind of blend that out. My brush is clean. Tap off a little bit. Tap off a little bit. Just kind of using the tip of that brush and using the color that's there. Just kind of blending it and bleeding it in a little bit towards our center here. Just a little. We are not trying to color in all the shapes and all of, sorry about that, the white space. What we're trying to do here is add enough color in and around our shapes to inform what's happening, right? So, got some good definition between here and here. Where we're losing definition is right here. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit of that back in here and here. Just kind of running down around that little curve, and then just going back over with a wet brush, just kind of informing, bringing that definition in and informing the shape. And all I'm doing, I'm choked up pretty far up on the brush and the ferrule of the brush here because I really want to get a lot of control. And for me, when I choke up on the brush, I get a lot more control. All right, this feels a little bit like too liney. So let's see what we can do to blend it out just a smidge. I want it to kind of fade in here a little bit more. And I think we can achieve that right there. I want that, I want just a little tiny bit more of color right here, just to kind of really help you get some definition. That's definitely feathered out. Okay, so we've got a little mix of some like line work that's a little heavier and line work that's a little more feathered out. So you could stop right here. You could stop right here and it would be wonderful. What I'm going to do is we're going to come in with some colored pencil. I'm going to dry this, come in with some colored pencil, and just to add a little bit of shape work around some of the edges, just to give it a little bit more pop. And can also use the watercolor pencils to layer over top of the watercolor that you've already done. So this, we've done all our blocking in of color, and this is kind of like our underpainting. We can use our watercolor pencils over top, and it will just kind of enhance and deepen the color a little bit more. Digging it. All right, let's just make sure it's completely dry. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. No worries, Tanya. Okay, I'm going to come in bluish turquoise. I think this is the color that I used. So I'm loving this shape here and here. What I feel like is I've lost a little bit of definition here. So I'm going to just come in very lightly. And I'm just going to feather in a little bit of pencil work. And we're not going to bleed, we're not going to activate the pencil work and bleed it out. We're going to let the pencil help us create some texture, some more texture and definition between our shapes. And see, I'm just adding a little bit. It also just kind of helps create, it helps our eye see what's forward, what's backward. It helps our watercolor piece start to pop off the page in a little bit more of a three-dimensional way. I'm going to pop my hand back here a little bit and just kind of come in, add a little bit of detail here. Very, very little. Start off very softly. We're going to run a few minutes over, friends, but we're getting close. Start off very, very softly. You can always add and layer more. So I can come in here and do a little bit of a circular motion and add a little bit of texture down here in these, just kind of following some of the areas of watercolor where I have a little more texture and just putting a little bit of watercolor pencil over it. Just going to tighten up that line a little bit, adding a little bit of color. You don't have to, just take a look at the piece that you've created and just add a little bit of touches of this watercolor pencil where you feel it enhances the watercolor work that you've already done and adds a little bit more texture. All right, I'm liking this line. I'd like to add a little bit right here and then maybe just pull back using the side of the pencil, follow some of this watercolor work here and just use my pencil in a circular motion and just kind of let my pencil kind of go over top of some of these areas. And it just adds a little more texture to it. Starts to give it a little more dimension. Let's come up here. Do kind of the same thing. Now, if you don't like the pencil lines, blend them out. Activate them with the water. I'm leaving them in because I want to. Because I want to. And that should be a good enough answer, right? I'm leaving them in because I think as I'm hovering this little bit of pencil over top of some of these areas, it's just adding some whimsical texture. And I'm just doing a little mixed media. And I kind of like it. All right, digging it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a little bit of orange in our areas that, let's just kind of come around, add a little bit of orange to some of the areas where there's quite a bit of orange. You might not need to go around all. I like this heart, this heart. This heart, I feel like I want to add a little bit of red. Can you, Sue, can you use normal pencil crayons as not activated? Yeah, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. Okay, I'm going to come in with a little bit of red here and just kind of, you could also, like if you didn't have watercolor pencils, friends, and since we're using pencils and we're not reanimating them or activating them with water, you could use your colored pencils. And I think, Sue, that might be what you're saying. Yeah, normal pencil crayons. So that would be like your normal colored pencils. Yes, you can absolutely do that. And work in that circular motion that I'm doing right now. I like the way these hearts look. Like this one, I feel needs a little bit of love. It's a little bit faded out in color. And that's okay. But it could use a little bit of definition here. So I'm going to come in and just kind of sharpen those edges. Just right here. And then let's take this pink. This is Pink Madder Lake. I might not like this, but let's just add a little bit of pink right here. And just kind of in that circular motion. And I just keep working in that space a little bit. And I'm not going to blend it out, but see how we've got a little bit of texture here? just working over top of the watercolor work that's there. Then I'm going to take the orange. Yes, Sue, good. I was correct. Colored pencils. Prismacolor. Let me know in the chat if I've done a couple watercolor pencils tutorials on this channel. I think with my, I did a whole series with holiday related stuff. Let me know in the channel, friends, if watercolor pencils, reason why I mean colored pencils, the reason why I like colored pencils, I like them for paper crafting. I also like using them like I'm using them right now. And using Gamsol with them, because I like them because you can get watercolor effects with colored pencils with a wax-based medium, and you definitely get a lot more detail. Okay, I'm going to resist the urge. Now, I want to show you one more thing. I want to pop a little tiny heart and do it in a brush stroke. So I'm going to show you how we can do that. I'm going to take a little bit of this opus, and we're going to do a brush stroke technique. So the brush, I've shared this before. We're going to turn the brush that way and then turn the brush this way, and then you get this little heart shape that you get to work with. So basically you're taking your brush and you're doing what I call like the leaf, like the little teardrop leaf that I'm always kind of sharing on this channel, and then we're just nesting two of them together to create a cute little heart. I think we're going to do, let's try it. Let's get a little bit on there. Let's do one right here to kind of finish off the top. Oh, cool. Cheryl, techniques with colored pencil would be fun. That's great. Maybe we'll integrate that into next month. Let's do one right here. And see, depending upon, and let's do one right here. Turning my brush, I'm trying to turn. And it, remember, look, see, if it looks wonky, like that looks wonky. No worries. Just going to take a smaller brush. Take a little bit of water, and then, you know, you just round it out a little bit. And then you get your heart back. There we go. Same thing with this. Take a little bit and round it out. And then we get our heart back. We get our heart back. That's a little bit of a sharp little heart right there, but kind of digging it. This one is definitely a wonky brush one. Let's just add a little something there. There we go. All right. I'm digging it. I see one more thing before we go, because we are 4 minutes over. I'm going to come in a little bit with my brush. I mean my watercolor pencil. And I'm just kind of hovering that line a little bit. I wanted to add just a little bit more dimension to that line. Now, one more thing, just one more thing, friends, before we go. I've got a white pencil, and I'm going to take a little bit of that white pencil and just kind of nest it around, just add a little bit of that white. This is great to do with watercolor, with colored pencils too. A little bit of white around some of those white areas. Just kind of enhancing it a little bit. You could add a little bit of white right here. Could even just kind of come in anywhere where you want to add a little bit of highlight and just add some white pencil. And you can activate this and animate it. Watch if I just put a little bit of white right here. Just kind of fun. Just a little extra finishing technique. All right, I'm digging it. So super fun. I would probably, no, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it exactly the way it is, because I'm going to resist the urge to add more. But if you wanted to deepen, get a little more deeper with your envelope, you could just go in and do another layer of wet into dry watercolor, just to kind of bring that up a little bit. But I'm kind of digging it and I like it. So we're going to resist the urge to mess with it. Okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed today's watercolor paint and chat. Multiple concepts that we went through today with watercolor techniques and color blocking and watercolor pencils. I will be back on Thursday with a brand new card tutorial and paper crafting tutorial. And we're going to use watercolor pencils again, except I got a little bit of a twist on Thursday's tutorial. I'm going to use alcohol-based markers. and do some coloring with that and talk about how I like alcohol-based markers like Copic markers or markers like that to create watercolor effects, and then how you can use a watercolor pencil over top of it to even bring that aqueous watercolory look home a little bit more. And in doing so, in that discussion on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about different paper stocks to create and achieve those effects. Bristol paper, hot press paper, Gina K White. 3 different papers I'm going to talk about because paper does matter when you're using different mediums to create watercolory effects. Okay, friends, so that's Thursday, 11:30 Eastern. I hope to see you there. You can always catch it on the replay. And I hope you really enjoyed today's tutorial. We've got a big week happening next week. I'll talk a little bit more about that on Thursday, but we've got a brand new release with Gina K coming out on Tuesday, and it's a little something different from me that I hope you're going to enjoy. So, okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a really great rest of your day. And remember, if you have any questions along the way, pop them down in the comments or the chat, and I will personally respond. Okay, friends, I will see you on Thursday. Bye now.